Hello everybody, my name is Ewan and welcome back to another Unity tutorial. On the last one we left off with a basic character controller that was responsive and even has physics and collisions enabled. Today I'm going to show you how to implement a very smooth camera follow script with absolutely zero code. So the first thing we're going to do is give ourselves a sense of direction within the scene. So with the stationary camera it's easy to see that the player is moving down to the bottom left corner and to the right, but once we have a camera following the player, we're not going to have that same sense of direction. So we're going to add a couple of more of these sort of different colored squares to our scene to give it, like I said, a sense of direction. And to keep our scene organized, we're going to right click on our hierarchy and do create empty. We're then going to name this empty game object environment. Right click on the transform and reset it to keep everything centered in its relative position. Going to drag our wall here down under the environment object. And now using the shortcut Control and D, we're going to duplicate it. Now in the scene view, we can drag it around here, give it a slight rotation, maybe even shrink it down a bit. Awesome. And I'm just going to continue doing this until we have a little bit of a variation to the scene and we can have something that gives us a sense of direction. Now the reason I'm putting these out of the camera is because we need somewhere to sort of travel to. So I'm just going to keep duplicating these. I'm going to keep them all the same color just for ease of use. Drag this one down here, maybe increase its size a little bit. And we'll do one more and just place it over here. Alrighty, so at this point we have a couple of different objects spread about. They're all neatly organized under our environment object. Alrighty, so the next step, we're going to go up to the window bar here, go down to Package Manager. It's going to open up a screen that looks somewhat like this. You can drag this around just like any other Unity window. Now, if you're using a different version of Unity, this might look different for you. However, if you're at the stage where you're learning about basic things and you're starting to put together a basic game, I highly recommend using the latest version of Unity possible, as it'll give you the most features and typically the most bug fixes and stable versions that you can. So what we're going to do up over here, we're going to go to Packages and do Unity Registry. This is going to give us all the officially signed Unity packages. We're going to use the search bar up here in the top right and type in Cine, C-I-N-E. That's going to bring up Cinemachine. It's going to be using for our camera today. And you can just click on Install. Depending on the speed of your computer, this might take longer, it might take shorter. But it's going to import everything that you need to use this plugin with Unity. Alright, so when you're done, you can just close out your package manager, and as you can see in our scene, nothing has changed except for at the top bar here, we now have a Cinemachine. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go to that drop down and do Create 2D Camera. So now once that happens, it's going to create a CM, stands for Cinemachine, VCam1, which is virtual camera. I don't like the way that they name these by default, so I typically just rename this to virtual camera. You can name it to whatever you want. It just makes it easier for me to read. I want to just drag this up below the main camera object. And as you can see in our game view, the cropping has changed a little bit from when we last saw it. That's because all of the follow settings are now no longer under the main camera, but rather they're under the CM virtual camera that we just created. To assign a game object to follow, you just simply grab your player object, drag it into the follow section, and now you'll see the camera will automatically correct itself. We can turn on our game window guides, and I'll explain these a little bit later, but for now, we'll just keep them on. So if we go ahead and hit play just by simply dragging in what to follow, you can see that we have a smoothed camera follow happening right now with absolutely no issues. As you can see, it smooths itself in between moves. There's no look ahead factor at the moment, but I'll show you how to do that. And there we go. We're moving around our scene in nice, smooth 2D space. So I liked the camera when it was a little bit more cut out. So we're going to go to the lens settings here at Cinemachine. I'm going to change our orthographic size to the 10 that Unity has as a more default value. It's a slightly bigger size in Cinemachine, but that's kind of the look I'm going for. We're not going to be looking at any sort of transitions today, as that tends to be sort of advanced. We're just going to go into the body section here. So our framing transposer is going to be the 2D setting that you'll be using the most. And as you can see, there's quite a few settings here. We can change all of these look ahead time. I'm just going to change that to, for example, 0.5, and then we're going to give it a 1 on the smoothing scale. if we hit play here, you'll see that the camera starts to kind of look ahead as we move. And that's kind of hard to see. It is a subtle effect that you're going to have to play around with a lot. The easiest way that you're going to figure out what settings you need to use for your game is just to play around with the camera in your scene view and start to play with different values. So I'm just going to turn up my damping here. Say I want a slower camera. I'm going to change it up to 3 even. A really nice noticeable smoothing effect. So next we're going to look at our dead zone and our soft zone here. What we're going to do is enable our game window guides and go to make sure we're in the game tab, and we can start adjusting certain things. So our dead zone means that the camera won't do anything while the player is in that zone. So this empty space here, if we hit play, the camera is going to maintain this position until I move out of it, and then it's going to put me back in it. So it's just going to constantly leave this center bit open. Dead zones typically, depending on your usage, you don't really need them. A small one can sometimes be nice, but I'm just going to keep it always centered on my player. It's going to constantly put me into the center. And then you have what's called a soft zone here. So your soft zone is where it will actively apply your default smoothing effects in order to keep the player centered. So if I make this really, really small here, you're going to see that our effects are slightly more pronounced. If we disable this, you can see that our camera is maybe a little bit less smooth, and it's really going to try its best to keep up with the player. And that is because if we re-enable these, the camera will absolutely never allow your follow to go into this red zone here. So if it does, it's going to really start kicking up, and it's going to try its very best. So if we normally have a nice smooth adjustment here, but if we go into this dead zone, it almost completely ignores it and does its very best to keep you out of it. So as far as dead zones and soft zones and all that fun stuff is concerned, that's pretty much what you need to know for the basics. I'm just going to disable this. There are a couple of other awesome things we can do with Cinemachine, such as camera shake. I'll just demonstrate that real quick. This isn't a tutorial on it, but if you'd like one, don't hesitate to let me know. You can turn up your camera shake here, and once you hit play, the amplitude and frequency gain, it'll start to actively shake it around. If you guys do want to see a tutorial on that, make sure you like the video and leave a comment below, let me know, and I'll get to it as soon as possible. That's pretty much going to be it for this video. If you enjoyed, subscribe and like, and stick around for more.